So I wanted to continue to talk about identities because I don't know about you, but I get snagged in that web a lot, and it's misery making. So when I create an identity, I create an image of myself that is stopped in time, is permanent, unchangeable, and therefore very unrealistic. It does not reflect impermanence or interdependence at all. And then I grasp onto that identity, and then the misery begins. But also, the transformation can begin if we start working with it properly. And the more I work with identities, the more I see how complex this is. There's so many layers, so many different identities. Just briefly, and my identity as a woman, for example. Well, what does that mean? Well, all the identities I have about myself, how I should be treated, I could go on and on. And then there's some subtle identities, like in the family I grew up in, that I was the youngest born of 3, and then the story that I've created in my mind about that, for example. And then all of the identities we create in all the activities we do, and our careers and our work and our relationships, so on and on and on, so many. So I think the most important thing to remember when working with identities is to remember that it's my mind that created them. It's not some objective thing outside. And so we work here to I don't know if we work here to deconstruct the identities, but they get deconstructed here. Let me say it that way. But it is very helpful to try and identify them. And it's not so easy. But for me, I can often identify them by how I am feeling and responding when they are activated. So when I'm holding tight onto an identity, I'm making a case in my mind that supports my position. When I start feeling defensive, when I start building my response when another person is still talking to me, I can feel the energy in my body. It's a tight, very zingy energy that is totally self-focused. It's all about me and wanting to be right. And these identities prop that up, quite well. Recently, I was talking to another resident about identities and that we come here with, and how we can fall into the trap of evaluating our worth by what we do at the Abbey that is significant. So I was thinking further about this, and I looked up the definition of the word significant. And it's sufficiently great or important to be worthy of attention. We can see how that's going to go. Yeah. So, of course, it's about something others could see, something tangible, outwardly focused, and of course about reputation. So the practice is dismantling our identities that result in us doing things which outwardly may look significant. And then also interrupting ourselves when we are responding due to protecting our identity. Again, when I feel that defensive, zingy energy, I try to shut my mouth. I try to quit talking. Otherwise, it doesn't go well. And often I just tell myself, drop it. And that tends to work pretty good. It's also very easy to focus on what we didn't do from a perspective of perfection. In this community, we know about that one pretty well. Again, this is built on our unrealistic identities and our low self-worth that follows these unrealistic identities that are frozen in time, really. And of course, my question always is, does demanding perfection from myself move me forward in my practice or keep me back? Always keeps me back. So while we're working to dismantle our identities, changing the focus from this is who I am to one of how can I help others, we can each day then start to practice cultivating inner qualities. We can practice by approaching whatever we do with bringing our full attention to what we are doing. For example, when talking to someone, recognizing when our attention is slipping and then refocusing our attention to the person talking to us. Secondly, we could consciously break down these self-imposed barriers or obstacles that we create in our mind that have a lot to do with these identities. We can ask ourselves, if we have fear that we aren't worthy enough in the position we're in or what we're engaged in. Looking at our self-doubt, our criticizing of ourselves. And if we can identify self-doubt and apply the antidote, that's very helpful. We can use assurance and self-acceptance that we belong where we are, doing what we're doing. Thinking that our skills and contributions are valuable to others is reasonable and helpful. And to do this, we have to see ourselves as worthy. And also, it's just very helpful each day to generate an attitude of kindness and acceptance over and over again. Training to recognize resistance and move the mind to acceptance is a very helpful practice. So what we do here in our practice at the Abbey that is significant has to do with where our heart is and what our motivation is when we are doing it. That's what's significant. What inner quality we bring to the activity, not what it looks like from the outside. And if we put these ways of thinking into our day, we'll start diminishing these identities we have constructed. And this, of course, will result in less misery for ourselves and also for those around us.